It feels strange to describe the current era of the game as early 2.2, given the 10 months that have gone by since its release, but in a manner similar to the, shall we say, rawness of early 2.0 and 2.1 levels, most releases these days still feel a bit ham-fisted in their attempts to jam 2.2 features and designs where they really don't need to be. RobTop himself hasn't exactly taken care to tastefully integrate new features, and the fact that the community evidently hasn't gotten sick of these cookie-cutter platformers doesn't really bode well for my enjoyment of the Featured tab for the next few months. Maybe I've grown cynical in my old age. When Meltdown was released, I was blown away by the possibilities for the move trigger, but when I heard about the random trigger, my first thought wasn't the branching path gameplay that skilled creators could build, it was more like, that's gonna be a pain in the ass in daily levels. So it was refreshing to see Evenfall on Vibrant's channel, a level that would be impossible to replicate in updates prior, but also a level where 2.2 triggers, which are essential to the level's very being, feel liberating rather than tedious. Evenfall is a bit like High Life or Phobos in that it can be pretty cleanly split into segments defined by different updates, and when I say that I don't just mean the blocks or triggers that were used. The composition of the first half of Evenfall feels so classic, you know? Blocks on the ground, saws in the air, vague background decoration gliding past. If it didn't look as clean and composed as it does, this could totally be the intro to one of those 2.0 map pack levels. I like the tone of this part, very calming, reassuring. You've seen this before, say the hazy and mellow color combinations. You're safe here, say the lush and hypnotic guitar notes, and you really have seen some of this before. There are iconic motifs from the past scattered throughout. All of this is well and fine by itself, and I'd at least mildly enjoy the experience if this was all Evenfall had to offer, but the most defining characteristic of it is the contrast between this lullaby of an intro with the grandeur and tension of the climax. The song picks up a little bit, and right out the gate you can see the mirror portal adds a little bit of intensity. The structuring is a lot more bold and haphazard. It's time to really pay attention to these clicks. These clouds aren't even that fast, but they blur together in the moment, unlike the outlined blocks that lazily float to their final destination. There are two things in particular that I really adore here, the first of which is the psychological threat of being upside down on the top of the screen instead of the opposite. It feels so slippery, so unstable. The penalty for falling upwards such a distance feels more severe, even though a normal downward drop would still result in death. The orbs tether you here, the familiar pulsing circles have become your only harness on this treacherous cliff face. The other thing is the use of the spider, which is a really smart decision. Traditionally, the spider uses the entire screen and its 2.1 boundaries, but the threat of such a long-distance fall, combined with the instant feedback of the spider, really ramps up the magnitude of every input. Make a mistake here, and you won't even get a moment to regret it. The vastness here is another strength. Whereas the pre-drop is very grounded, these mirrored parts are spacious, movements very grand and drawn out. You can really feel how the canvas has been widened, and I don't just mean when the camera pans out. It feels like you're losing the burden of gravity. Your connection to this world is only tenuous, a bit like the rainbow section of Falling Up or the white UFO in Dizzying Heights. Even though this part is just as gorgeous as the rest, it's here where the only two real missteps occur, and they're both pretty minor. Firstly, I'm not that big a fan of how strictly you have to adhere to click sync for the ship parts. That style of gameplay really lends itself well to the more restrictive and calculated gameplay like this ball, but here the instrumental complexity has been increased. I'm flying almost without boundaries, yet I'm still anticipating a more emphatic click every time this little snare beat comes around. I'm also a little underwhelmed by the ending cue. I get that the song winds down pretty quickly, but such a stark return to a smaller scale makes me feel like there's something I was supposed to see and play but missed out on. It's not that significant, but the level feels that much more like a tech demo as a result. Like I said, these are both pretty small nitpicks, and I still think Evenfall is a total success at what it's going for. It's not the level that made Vibrant go 2.2 is evolution or anything, but it's a nice gem that's pretty bold yet elegant in its presentation, a clear and sunny forecast for the future. 7 out of 10. Make a mistake here, and you won't even get a